Hello, welcome to day 2. I am so excited. I had a lot of fun yesterday, and hopefully it can be the same today. And I think it will be because there's a lot of hands-on show and tell, and we are going to play with the beta and show Zoom comments on screen, show you how you can run a Zoom meeting inside of Ecamm Live. That's pretty exciting. Now, if you happen to miss yesterday or you are new and do not know who the heck I am, then my name is Kat Mulvihill, and I teach people to run more professional, engaging, and seamless virtual presentations. And for me, and like many of you, you're spending a lot of time in Zoom meetings and you are running these and you want them to look good, whether it's something like having your logo, showing your name at the start, or actually using these assets to guide the audience and guide the viewer. So today, what are we getting into? It's Wednesday. We are going to try and flip, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I really love thinking in scenes. I used to think in slides, and when it came to presenting, I would just open my slideshow software and I would start building my presentation that way. Now I start to build my presentation thinking about scenes. So we're going to talk about that. We'll also spend some time just really making sure everyone is clear on overlays, because those are the components that make up your scene, whether really simple or a little bit more layered and complex. And yes, layered is intentional. And then we are going to actually dive in. We've got a few volunteers who are standing by to jump into a Zoom meeting. We are going to show the new Ecamm Live beta, and I'll show you what this looks like, show you how it works. You can download and try it for yourself. We will not get into all of the features of it. We're going to stick with comments. We're just going to keep it simple today and stick with comments. And then tomorrow, this is where we are focusing on just more seamless presenting. So how do you manage your screen real estate? How do you control your scenes so you can stay focused on your presentation, which is the most important aspect, is staying connected and engaged with your audience. So that's what the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, look like. And then finally on Friday, as a reminder, hopefully you join us. So if you've registered, you'll get a link to join the Zoom call, and then you can show off the scenes that you have created. And if you haven't yet, I hope that you have downloaded your trial, or maybe you're already an Ecamm user and you can put together some scenes and test them out, get some feedback from other people in the call, and see how that looks when we are all together. I also want to emphasize, I got a couple of questions after day 1 around Zoom resolution. So I've added a few extra scenes that talk about Zoom resolution. So we will come to that at the end. If for some reason I get carried away, remind me that I have some resources related to Zoom resolution. What are some of the factors? Yesterday I mentioned there are a few different things to actually optimize for HD. So I've got a list of those today. And I also have where to check in your settings if that is in fact turned on. So we're going to come back to that. But first, let's just tackle this idea of thinking in scenes. And I mean, in one way, I like to think of it almost like a storyboard. Whenever I have a virtual presentation where I'm using some form of graphic, even if it's really simple, and maybe I'm just kicking off the call using some graphics, I still want to think through, what are they seeing first? What are they seeing next? What is going to be on the screen beside me, or maybe not? Right now, I don't have any assets on the screen, whereas a moment ago, I had a list beside me so that I could help guide you through what's actually going to happen. So maybe you are just easing into this, using it at the start of a call to just structure and sort of scaffold what is happening, what can people expect? And you can also use this at the end to recap. Or maybe you're like me and you actually want to use it throughout your entire presentation. And in fact, I rarely use slides. Let me just say, I still sometimes use slides, definitely in person. But when it comes to a presentation, I typically am someone who likes to reduce the number of words, sentences, or whatever's on a slide, because I don't want to overwhelm people. And if you have words on a slide and you're saying something, the human brain can't actually do 2 things at once. So what you're saying should match what's on the slide, and you shouldn't have so much on the slide that people just they have to pick one. They either stop listening to you and look at the slide, or they are looking at the slide. So that's why I really like minimal words that support what you're saying. They go along with what you're saying, and then they help your audience. So when it comes to thinking in scenes, I actually like to structure any of my presentations in the flow that people will see them. I'm about to share my screen. We're going to go into demo mode so you can actually see behind the scenes of the way that I've set up this workshop. We're also going to show you a couple other examples of what I like to call scene templates, where I can easily have some ready so that I can duplicate them and add some things in there. So let's take a look at the demo and just kind of walk through my method. So let's hope this works. I'm getting the box. It appears that I am live demo mode, but maybe let me know in the chat just to be sure if everybody can actually see everything that's happening. Okay, I can actually see it. I've got a little copy. So on this screen, I've got my main window here. This is the actual production. And as you can see, I'm live. I'm live streaming right now. Over here in the scenes, this is where when I say thinking in scenes, this is how I organize my presentations. So even if you're starting really simple, maybe you only have 3 scenes, or maybe you're someone who just likes to switch between a couple of different options, that is completely fine. There's no one right way to use Ecamm for your virtual camera. What I do is I like to use folders. So as you can see, this is a profile. So this profile is for this workshop. I have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which is not filled out yet because I like to do that after each day, Friday, and then the template. So if we look at yesterday, you can see that I actually did have a countdown. I have kind of stolen those for today and moved through my outlines. I had a couple of examples that I showed of Zoom. I had the visuals of how a virtual camera works. And then the one thing that I do that I don't know how many people do this, so maybe let me know in the comments if you are an Ecamm user, if this is something you've done. I add duplicates of my main camera and intersperse them because that's my way of pacing. And all I have to do is just go to the next scene and the next scene and the next scene. So it's like a slideshow, but instead of thinking in slides, I'm thinking in scenes. And I just progress to the next one after the next one. And if it's something like a graphic where I build it out. So if we actually click on this scene so we can see it, the first one is just this camera, then the next one, and they sort of build out after each other. And the secret is that I create the final scene, I duplicate it, and then I just hide the things that I don't want to show. Then I duplicate again, and then I just hide. So this scene technically still has all of the things in the final scene, except I'm just hiding them. So this would be an example of how I structure. Just like in a slideshow, you might have some animations that you show. Instead, I am just kind of building out those instead of an animation. Each individual scene has those. And so this was yesterday's where I went through all of the different things. We had the considerations that I went through, the computer resolution, virtual background, etc. Let's actually take a look at a few scenes to see how they are constructed using the overlays, because everything that is in a scene, we can see in the overlay how it's actually made. So let's take a look at this outline example. This outline example has a few things. First of all, there's a background. Now I am able to show, I just have this blue background. When it says show in background, that means in any scene that I click on, this blue background will be available. And as long as my source is blank, your background will show. So what I do is I start with a blank scene. That means my background is going to show. It's going to be consistent across all of the different scenes where the source is blank. And then I add my camera as an overlay. So here, this was the first piece that I put together. I had my Camlink 4K as my camera. So I added that. Then I added the outline at the top. And each of these is actually an individual one. You can see I've actually copied this from another. These are just things that aren't showing right now because I like to repurpose and I like to rebuild. So all of these are in this scene. Whereas if we take a look at this scene, in this scene, I have the background showing. I hid my camera because I duplicated this from the prior scene. I have run an activity, I've got my instructions, my hide your face, and I have a countdown timer. So these are all the components that make it up. And for this example, I started with this scene first, and you can see the logo, I duplicated some scenes that had the logo in it. So a lot of them have the logo that's just hidden. If I were to show this, you could see it in the corner. But for most of them, I had it hidden to focus. So first I constructed this scene, started with a blank source so you could see the background. I added my camera and positioned it off to the left here. Then I added the title, run an activity, and then I added the instructions. Then I duplicated this scene. So you can use this little duplicate icon or My cheat code is I like to just duplicate. So let's actually recreate this. If I click Command D, I've now duplicated this activity, and then I can rename it. And so I call this activity 2, or I could call it activity 1B. And I've already got the structure, but this time I want to hide my face. So I just click X beside my camera. And now I want to add a countdown timer. So let's say this activity is 3 minutes long and I don't want to have a background. So I'll just say no background for the timer and no border. So I'm just making a few edits to the background. 3 minutes. I can also say that I want it to go to the next scene when this activity is done and click add. Now I will grab the countdown timer. I can make this larger. I can decide where I want to put it. If I want it sort of centered in the middle, if I want it where my face was, you can play around with where that lives, but you're creating this scene, but it will look identical when I flip between this one and this one. The words don't move, I disappear, and then I have a countdown timer. You could do a few other things with it, but this is how I like to structure. I do a lot of duplicating. If you are starting a scene from scratch, let's say I'm just going to go to the bottom of yesterday and just add a fresh scene. I can press the plus, and if I press the plus, it's going to actually default to my built-in FaceTime camera. I don't want that. So I will go to source and click blank, or you can use the shortcut here. And now we can see my background. And this is how I like to start, by just starting with a blank background. Then I can add my camera overlay and choose the camera I want, which is this camera in front of me. I can use the camera effects window to zoom in, kind of move that camera closer to me, drop it down a little bit so that I'm positioned properly. And this is where I get to start to customize things. Maybe I want to have a colored border around my camera. So maybe I want a white border, and let's give the border some width. I can add some rounded corners, and I really just start to make this my own and how I'd like it. Shape, I really love custom shape. There are all sorts of different ones you can do for your camera. Custom is just so flexible because you can decide whether you want narrow, skinny, a little bit more square, etc. And so if I were recreating this activity scene, I can set my camera here, and then I can add the building blocks like adding text. So here I can add a heading, position that heading, resize it, and ultimately you are just starting to craft what you like. Now, what I really like to do, let's close Tuesday, is I like to have what I call templates. These are just scenes that are structured with some structure that I like and that I can easily duplicate and then move into my session. This makes creating your scenes so much easier because you're not recreating from the ground up. So if I take a look at this, here's an example where it's just my camera, just something simple so that I am positioned. And if I ever want to add something on the page, I can duplicate this main camera and I know that I'm not moving around. Whereas if I created another scene, let's just do this demo, and then we are going to move over to the comment overlay soon. But let's say I created another one of just a second main cam, and I can change my camera source. So let's go to the camera switcher and just say I'd like this camera. Now I have to try to recreate that. And I can zoom it in to a certain amount that I think it will be, and I can try to move my camera down over here. But if I'm switching from this scene to this scene, I did pretty well, but I'm slightly shifting. It's like this weird little shift that I'm actually pretty proud of myself. But the idea is I don't need to try and recreate the scene. I will delete that. And anytime I just want my main camera, I can simply duplicate this. But I have other ones. So maybe I want to have a camera like this, where you can see I specifically left an area for chat. And this is why this workshop I'm running always has a little bit of room at the bottom. It's so that I can bring a chat overlay. We have a few others that I've set up that I can duplicate, like having the outline, having a little bit more screen real estate with the circle, camera left, camera right. I can have more of a split where it's side by side, a lower third in the center, a lower third on the left. This one has a little bit of transparency. So all of these things are set up, or just even a blank scene that I can just duplicate and start fresh. I don't even have to change the source. I can do that. Let's take a look though. Let's go back to this main border template because I want to talk about comment overlays, and then we're going to open Zoom. So comment overlays, here, let's look at this one. So if I see the comments from this chat, I can click either on the face where you'll start to see this icon to add it, or I can say add to broadcast. If I click, it will pop up on the screen. Now with these overlays, I can actually adjust these. Now I'm going to do something else that I really like, which is window, hide main window controls. So now I can play around with the scene and I don't have to worry about any interference. With this overlay, I can actually change the look and feel of this. So if I go here, I can change the background color if I want. I can change the opacity of it. Right now, this is about 50% opacity. I could bump this up. So now it's just black. I don't want that for this purpose. I can also change the shape or the size of the icon. How big do I want the icon of the face to be? And so you can actually adjust this. I can also adjust how long this is. And I have another example here on today's where I've got comments. So we can hide this comment. And here, this was a great reminder from Anna and Fulgens. I was on their show on Monday and I had seen adding multiple comments during a stream, but I forgot how to do it. So they refreshed my memory. So let's say you actually want to show more than one. If I were to just do this, it would just have one person, but maybe I want to show more than one. Maybe I want this to be here and I can just drag Kirk's name up here, maybe put Kirk on here as well. What else? We're going to put the nailed it. We're just going to put all these really amazing comments on here. Anything else? We'll put the woo. So you can actually have multiple comments. So maybe you have a scene like this where you have lots of space. You can drag those comments onto the screen so that if you're actually gathering things, you're not just limited to one. Now these I set up and I actually made them a little bit shorter so that they all fit beside me. But if I switch to another one, like if I go to this main scene and I click on this one, it will remember for this scene. So I can make those adjustments. So now it's time to get into the beta. I could talk about this forever. So you might notice that there is, let's show the window controls. Show main window controls. First of all, I will draw your attention to the fact that I am using Ecamm Live Beta. So up in the top corner, instead of just seeing Ecamm Live, it says Ecamm Live Beta. I have both programs on my computer. I've got the main one, just Ecamm Live, the actual release to the public. And then I have the Ecamm Live Beta, which is available to the public for those who choose to download it. Yesterday, I was just running regular Ecamm Live. Today, I am running this using the Ecamm Live Beta. And something that's different when you hover here is you'll see that there is a little zoom down here, if you can see it. I know it's small. If I click on this, now I can see this little Zoom window. I am signed in. So the first time you click it, it will ask you to sign in to your Zoom account. So I'm already signed in. I could generate a new meeting. I can join a meeting and I can access scheduled meetings. This means I don't have to open the Zoom app separately. I can actually join a meeting from Ecamm. So let's look at my scheduled events because I have a Zoom beta demo. We are going to join that meeting and you're actually going to see a Zoom meeting. Oh, let's maybe turn off my camera for a second because I'm doing demo mode. I've got that screen. So everything that's in Ecamm is going to show here. Because I'm in demo mode right now, it's doing that infinite loop where it's showing you demo mode, showing me demo mode, etc. But this is a Zoom meeting. And right now I am in the Zoom meeting. I've got people who are in the waiting room. So this looks just like Zoom, but it's not. It is Zoom, but it's in Ecamm. I hope I don't butcher it. Let me admit my guests. I'm going to kindly ask my guests not to keep muted. So we've got Andy, we've got Paul. Up here, I can change the view just like in any other one. So I can go to gallery view. We've got Neil joining us. And so anything you do in Zoom, you do here. But this is actually all being run in Ecamm. And my camera is automatically Ecamm's virtual camera. So any scene that I set up in Zoom is going to show up in there. Now, because I'm using the screen, this is where you're going to see the Ecamm, what you're seeing, but it can be a little bit infinite loopy. But everything that's on the stream is actually showing in this Zoom meeting. Now, let's chat a little bit, shall we? So in the chat, I can open the chat and a meeting chat window will open. So now I see that there is a message from Andy coming in the chat, but I will also notice that over here, look at this. Andy's comment is coming through in the Ecamm's comments, which means I can show them on the screen. Now my screen is showing demo mode, but if I click on these, I can add them. So if I click this, you can see what it looks like, and this is what it would look like for them. So I have now got this here. So I'm going to hide those window controls again so you can see it clearly. We have from the chat, so I've got Neil says hi. I can add Paul's comment here, and I've got where's Andy? Did I lose you already? There we go. And we've got Andy. So I can this is what everyone would see in my Zoom call, is I can actually pull up all of these Zoom comments. And let's give it a try if we go to the other scene where I have this little side comments on the scene. So I'll just kind of remove these, and we can do these with the Zoom comments. So I can actually add this one. And remember, it now knows that it's shorter on this page. So we've got the hi, everyone. Oh, no, I did it wrong. Got to drag them. So I've got Neil's comment. I'm going to drag Andy's comment here, and I can drag Paul's comment here, and I can actually have all of these chats that are coming in from Zoom. We're in a Zoom meeting together. Now, the way that I personally am the most exciting thing for me about this integration is that I have all of the stuff I normally bring into a Zoom meeting, but now I can actually pull up people's comments directly from the chat. So let's take a look at a couple of the features. And then we got little zoom. Let's add that as well. We'll just add the zoom on here. So we've got all of these comments. Let's take a look at some of the controls. I'm going to hide this control. And over in this Zoom window, you can see that I've got this option to hide the meeting control. I can show the meeting window. So the show, hide, I'm going to, yeah, this is fine. So I can do that. I can also, as you'll see, I kind of skipped over this. I can click on participants, chat. We have reactions just like you would in any other meeting. So if I want to add this reaction, we've got our reaction emojis. We've got share screen. So if I click on share screen, I can do that just like I normally would in a Zoom meeting. Host tools are all here, so I can lock the meeting, the waiting room, etc. We also have the option to record. So if I want to record this meeting, I can do the same. And then we also have breakout rooms, captions, polls. So you are running Zoom in Ecamm. So you don't have to go and pick the camera. Everything, your virtual mic and virtual camera will already by default be connected in this meeting. And you also have the meeting details at the top. And as I said before, you do have the option for changing the view if I want to change speaker, etc. I can also use Spotlight still. So if I want to spotlight myself, although I don't want to in this case because of the infinite loop, but all of those features are available just like you're in Zoom. The other thing I want to call your attention to are some of the Zoom settings. So if I go into, let's go back to my main window. I will show the controls. So when you click on Zoom, it just opens and closes this window. And you can access your Zoom preferences from here. There are also a few other options, the meeting settings. So if you want Zoom meeting settings, you have the option to auto admit participants, auto add them to camera, and remove participants. If we open our preferences, which opened over here for some reason, there's a Zoom section in the beta where you can set a few things for this beta. So I have it set to never auto admit participants. I want to make sure I know who's coming into my meeting, but it depends on your group. Also, auto add Zoom participants as Ecamm camera sources. This would be if you were actually wanting to bring someone's camera up into your scene. Let's say you are interviewing someone or you want to have a, conversation, side-by-side chat, and you put them in the scene. You can do that. For today's purposes, I want to keep this short. We are not going to get into that. You also have the option of how do you want to Zoom capture. I have mine set to live streaming, and I won't go too much into detail. Also, Zoom processing. So this, if you have this to disabled, it's going to use what's called Zoom's original sound. So that if you have any sound effects in Zoom, everything, or in Ecamm, everything, every sound effect, et cetera, is going to be heard in Zoom, whereas Zoom naturally likes to actually take out anything that's not the human voice. I actually do have it that I want to have control, because when I'm often running a meeting or workshop, I actually like that Ecamm cuts out extraneous background noises. So I have it to configure my own profile. So if I want to change to original sound, I can do that in Zoom settings and not here. But this is up to you. And here's the one you want to have checked off. Add Zoom chat and Q&A to Ecamm comments and reactions window. And so I've got that checked off so that I can add people's chat to my scene. Okay, that was a whirlwind. I am going to Okay, I'm going to keep the meeting. We're going to hide the meeting window for a moment so that we don't see the infinite loop. We're going to close this, and I want to take a look. Let's actually pop out of demo mode for a second. Actually, let's hide some of these comments here and go back to my main window, and I'm going to go back to the regular view while I just check on some of the comments and questions, because I'm sure that there have been some comments and questions that have come up. So let's just take a look for a queue and see if there is anything. Okay, so let's answer. Are there any questions, I guess, pertaining to Zoom before we go into our official area? So let's just look through. Okay. Let's go look like this one. Do the comments from Zoom disappear if set in preferences? So I think that's around the preferences that you can set up in Zoom or in Ecamm around how long you want them to show up or to hide. I actually like to just use a hide comment button, or sometimes I'll just click the X to remove it. But I do believe you can have it timed to, and I think it treats it like all the other comments, is my understanding. So if anyone in the chat from Ecamm wants to correct me, please let me know. And let's see. I see the question, when will we be able to switch profile in Ecamm while in an integrated Zoom meeting? Oh, I'm going to refer that to our friends in the chat who might know more than me. This is all very new. It's not even officially released. It's in the beta version. And so it is accessible. You can start using it, but it is not fully baked. It will be, and then it will be released to everyone. This is something that is on the Pro plan, just like the virtual camera. This is on the Pro plan, so it's not going to cost extra to have this integration. It is part of the Pro plan. And since we're talking about Zoom, and since I promised, and I want to get this as part of the half hour, let's address Zoom resolution, because I did want to come back to this. So yesterday I hinted there are a few things you have to do to optimize Zoom. So I actually found the email and I took a screenshot. So when I requested HD and Zoom turned it on, then I got this list from Zoom. So in order to send HD, you want to put the meeting in full screen mode. You also want to have HD enabled in settings. I'm going to show you that in the next scene. You need to have enough bandwidth. So you need to have enough capacity your internet has to be strong enough to send out that quality of resolution. And it says at least one attendee must be in full screen mode, which you don't have control over. Then to receive HD, put it in full screen mode, use active speaker mode. So instead of using gallery, you want to be using speaker view, and meet the bandwidth requirements. And at least one attendee must be meeting the requirements for sending HD. So this is what you get when Zoom emails. Now, this was a while ago. It's possible it's changed a little bit, but this is the official email that I got to optimize for having HD. Now, for the actual settings, so these are settings. You have to sign in to your account on the web, and you go to Settings, In Meeting Advanced, and this is where you will actually see your HD. So it might say Group HD, depends on your account. Right now I'm actually on an account that has access to 1080, so it does have access to full HD. If you are on a personal Pro account, which is the individual plan, it'd be capped at 720, unless as of today, from my understanding. And so when I say that's the Zoom, I guess, requirements for getting it. Now, one of the things you can do is you can actually check your Zoom stats in a meeting. So let's go back and let me open this. I'll open the meeting. We'll go back into our demo mode. And when I go to my Zoom settings, so I've got my Zoom meeting sessions have popped up on the screen, and I can go to statistics and I click on video, and this is where you'll see. So right now I'm in gallery view and I'm only sending 360. No, I'm sending 1080 now. It just changed. It jumped. So apparently I'm sending 1080 right now and I am receiving 360. So this is where you can actually check what is being sent. If you are doing a screen share, when you're doing the screen share, you can see what you're sending and receiving. And when in doubt, and I think this is something I might have hinted at yesterday, or maybe I didn't, but I do screen share when I need that fine resolution. Now, screen sharing is high resolution but low frame rate. So it's typically optimized for more static things that aren't moving. There are ways, if you're sharing, say, a video through screen sharing, you can actually adjust in Zoom so that you get a higher frame rate so that it's not so choppy. But the risk is it might compromise because it's always trying to optimize for the signal and the broadcast that it is sending out. All right, so that's our lesson time. It's time for Q&A. I'd like to ask our friends in the Zoom meeting to stand by just in case we have more questions related to Zoom. But let's go back because there were some other questions that were asked about scenes, and I want to make sure that I am covering those. So let's take a look earlier on. So we had, is there a practical limit to the number of scenes? I run 3-hour virtual sessions and having 40 scenes seems too much. Not for me, but it depends. This really depends on your preference. I've sometimes had, I think, 70 scenes. Now, remember, I am putting just my main camera in between these scenes. So I'm regularly having a duplicate of my main camera over and over. And that's because I just want to press one button, which is next scene on my Stream Deck. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But you can also just do the page down button on your keyboard. That will just progress you. So you don't even have to look. You just have one finger on the button and you just go through, just like you would go through a slide deck, you're just going through scenes. And because of just kind of simply duplicating and just saying, oh, I like this structure, you don't have to come up with so many varieties. You can just have a handful of different scenes that you like and then have those as your way of running a presentation. If you are running a similar presentation over and over again, why not just have it set? And you can always make some minor adjustments, but you've set it up once, just like if you set up a slide deck once and you repeat it, same kind of principle applies. That's when you start thinking in slides or thinking in scenes instead of thinking in slides. It might not be for everyone, by the way. Now, some people, if you are using slides, and remember we talked about resolution yesterday, but if you have a decent resolution and you have large legible writing on your slides, you could just have your scene where it's you and your slide, and then you progress through your slides and you actually stay on one or two different scenes. Maybe there's a scene with just your slides, you plus your slides, and maybe just you. You could just alternate between those and then just control your slide deck. So that is another option. And for some people, that works far better than what I do. But for me, I really like to have them take the place of my slides. Okay, other questions here. Are you creating different profiles for each set of scenes for different presentations? Yes and no. I would say in general, I typically do have different profiles for different presentations. For example, I have a corporate training. So for that one, I just always go back to the corporate training. If I am creating content for YouTube, then I have a different profile. If I am teaching a class, which I am, I have a different profile. So I do like to keep them separate because maybe my assets will differ. For example, this workshop is separate. I don't usually use this blue background. This is something that was part of putting together this workshop. So then I use that instead. So the main difference is that you do sort of have to start from scratch somewhat. So you could just use folders. I will say in my experience, I did have a profile that was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I had lots of folders, but it was a little bit slower to switch between profiles. So I started to kind of question how much do I really save in a given profile? But for me, I do like to keep them separate. And okay, Where did you get or store the blue background without using a screensaver? So let's actually go back to, I have a little folder I can show you. Let's go back into live demo mode. That's not the live demo mode I want. Live demo mode, here we go. I don't know what I just showed there. Yep, that was not the screen I meant to show. So here we are in the actual live demo mode, and what I can show you, this is what happened. This was on the other screen. So here we have the assets that I kind of pulled, that Ecamm had given me some assets in advance, said, here's some backgrounds, here's the logo. So I had these ready, and all I did, if you look at this, this is the background I used. I just dragged this into the background, and as soon as it's in there, then that's it. And I keep it in this folder because you want all of your assets. You want Ecamm to be able to retrieve the assets. If I moved this somewhere else, then all of a sudden Ecamm would not be able to find the file. So you do want to make sure that your files kind of stay in one location. I do have a folder that is all my like streaming and content assets. And once they're there, I really try not to move them. Or sometimes I'll duplicate it and then have a copy here. So here's another example. And actually, let's show this one. I am going to go to my main camera. I'm going to duplicate this copy, and let's just call this, we'll do a name example. And this is the animation that came with the workshop. So if you registered for the workshop, you got a customizable name overlay that I showed yesterday. So in this example, I would want to drag this into the current scene because I only want to show it on this scene. Drag it into the overlays folder, not on top, because if it's a video file, it will actually show up like a video. I want it to be an animated overlay. Now it's a little bit smaller, so I just drag it up to the corner, drag it all the way across, and then I can play the animation and see how it works. And this will automatically play when I change that slide. So if you go from one scene, I switch to the next scene, then that's how we can add external assets. But most of these assets were ones that I made. So if we look at this template, let's say we look at this lower third example, this is just a shape that I created in Ecamm. So down here in the corner, I just added a box. I made it semi-transparent, and then I added some text in this case. Whereas this one here is actually just one text box. So I have my text and I had the box. And so these are just different ways that you can create scenes. I did not drag or import these. These were all made inside of Ecamm. All right, let's hide demo mode and look at the questions again. Let's go back to my main camera here. And is there a timer setting? Oh, for on. Let's actually, I think that is in the preferences. Did anyone answer that in the chat? It's been a while since let's see. Yeah, if someone can refresh, because I haven't gone live in so long, I have not played around with the comments here. Okay. And I've got a question here from Rich. Do you start, stop, focus mode, or do you just spotlight to keep your presentation? So in a Zoom meeting, when I'm using the virtual camera, whenever I am doing a presentation for a little while, then I will actually stop, or I will spotlight. So typically I will spotlight, start off, do whatever the instructional thing is. And then if there's interaction, I'll remove the spotlight, and I'll usually just keep myself with maybe just my main camera where I'm not showing graphics. And then when it comes back to anything instructional, I spotlight. That should force everyone into that full screen speaker view. I think people can disable it, but it does take front and center because some people will just be sitting in gallery view. Your graphics will be on the screen and they'll be so tiny, and that people will say, I can't really see it. And it's because it's not in speaker view. So I definitely recommend using Spotlight, which I think I definitely put in a good word for Spotlight yesterday. Okay, and what other questions? What do you do when someone wants to send the PowerPoint deck to them? I have been asked for speaking engagements, and I have had people ask me if I can submit the slides. I usually will say that I am presenting that I'm using scenes. So I will just politely say I don't have any slides for this presentation. Everything that I'm doing will be actually in my video window. And I do always want to make sure that the that the resolution will be okay. There are times when I've actually asked to use my account so that I know it will at least be 720 for the most part. So I've done that as well. That's been a technique that I have used, but I just don't send them slides. If it's in person, then I have slides and then I can send the slides. I haven't figured out a way to use the virtual camera in person. So, okay, I've got this question here. Okay, to confirm, I can have an insert of me in Ecamm and an insert of my student from Zoom and a scene slide of our Zoom chat running dynamically all the while. So with the new beta, you can add cameras. So if we take and I'm not going to get too deep into it just because of time constraints. We only have a few more minutes today for the workshop. But if I go back into our live demo mode, make sure I'm showing the right one, you will see here that I have the option to add all of the people in the meeting. I can add them to a scene. So I can actually have their camera turn on and then I can bring that. As soon as you turn a camera on, if you add someone, everyone is going to get a notification that this is being streamed if it's set to live streaming, even if it's not. I believe that's still the case. And that is because Zoom wants people to know if they're being captured somehow, if this is being recorded. And so, but if you're okay with that and that's what you want to do, yes, I could have a scene. So for example, let's say I had this scene here where I've got my camera. Actually, no, let's do this one. It's me and maybe I want to duplicate this. So I think I mentioned this yesterday. If I've got myself here, I can hold down Option and just drag over and duplicate a copy. And then I can change the camera. And when I choose the video, I can actually choose someone from the Zoom meeting. Now in my test, also this might be a little trippy. So I'm just gonna switch back to this. One of the things that I noticed in some testing is that, and this happens almost all the time, is that what they see has a slight delay. So for some, you just want to make sure that if you are doing something like that, that your guest knows that if they're watching that main screen, they might actually see a little bit of a delay of them speaking. Now they could hide the view potentially and just talk to the camera. That would be ideal. But I do think it's something that you should know. So you could have you and the student that you bring up onto stage beside you, and you could pull up the comments on the side, or you could have the two of you maybe stacked and have the comments on the screen beside. So yes, you can use this integration to do that. And for many Ecamm users, they are mostly going to use the integration to create productions where they're bringing people up into scenes. But for many of us lay people, I just want to run a Zoom meeting where I've got the virtual camera, but I can also put up people's comments and address them so everyone can see which question I'm answering or which comment I want to highlight during the call without actually bringing people into the scene, even though, yes, that is absolutely possible and it is a capability that is part of the design, which is really exciting. If you were hosting a panel, you could have the person join through Zoom, but then you can actually have them in a really nice production. You could even just have their camera on the screen. It doesn't have to be you with them. So there are ways to really make an elegant, let's say, webinar or something where all they have to do is join a Zoom meeting, which most people know how to do, but you can then add their camera. It's just helpful to know that, to let them know there will be a little bit of a delay. Okay, any other... So I see the question, is Ecamm sharing windows still the best way to share screen in Zoom with this integration? Depends on what you're sharing. I would say it depends on your resolution. If you have high resolution, I would just use the virtual camera and just spotlight your speaker window. But if your resolution is lower, then I would say sharing your screen is an advantage, but just know that when you share your screen, the frame rate reduces because it's optimizing for resolution, not for frame rate. And so it's possible that it might be a little bit choppy, although you can change it and say optimize for video for screen sharing. So hopefully that answers your question. I know the resolution thing is quite frustrating indeed. And I know we're running up on time. Let's just see. We've got a question here. Is there a setting in Ecamm Zoom preference to enable join meeting drop-down choice feature? So the drop-down. So I mean, if you have any scheduled meetings, so I don't know if you saw back when I shared when I was joining the meeting, I can't do that right now because I'm in a meeting. But when you go to join, if there's a scheduled one, you can click on that and you can see all of your scheduled meetings. But if you don't, if someone just gives you the Zoom link, I think you do right now have to paste it. Let me know in the chat from anyone from the team. This is all very new and we're all learning, but I mean, it's ideal when you're hosting, but you can join someone else's meeting, but I think you just have to enter in the passcode or the meeting ID and passcode, and you can join a meeting from inside. Now you can technically open the app as well, but I think it does make you join from both. If you start the meeting in Ecamm, but then you also open the app, then you'll actually be in the meeting twice. All right. Anything I missed as we wrap up today? I know this is jamming a lot into this session, and I've been mostly just looking at the questions, but I don't know if there are any other sort of comments. Let me know just how you're feeling. How do you feel about this integration, the opportunity in Zoom to show people's comments while they're in the meeting? Yeah, there are some trickier questions. This is a newer technology. As I said, it's in beta, and hopefully, I think we probably got the link to beta in the chat. And you can join the beta group so that as you test it, and if you notice there's anything funky going on, then you can tell the team so that they can iron out all the kinks for the main release. And I see super informative. I love the integration of the, yes, I agree. Right, Elaine? It's awesome. All right, excited for the potential. Seriously, the idea to be able to show what you're talking, one of my main things that I love is that people's attention wanders. So when you can actually just have the thing you're addressing on the screen, also for the recording, when people are watching back a recording, someone would say, oh yeah, I see that in the chat. And then they just answer it. They don't even reread it because they assume everyone can see it. But if you are recording, then having that comment or that chat up on the screen is a really great way to get engagement. And as I said yesterday, people love to see their name on screen, most people. So it might actually drive more engagement when you can actually use this. I guess the last thing I should say when it comes to this integration, and then we'll tie this up, is that if you are in an organization, like if you're an educator, it is possible that you may need permission to actually use this on your organization's account. So there may be some limitations. Not every organization allows third-party apps to access the Zoom account. So there might be some potential barriers, and you may have to put in a request. And hopefully you can make the case for why it would drive engagement and just be a better experience. But that is something that you should be aware of when it comes to being part of an organizational license, if that is something that you are faced with. All right. Thank you so much for everyone. Tomorrow, we're talking about making it seamless, making it flow. And I hope to see you back again, same time, same place tomorrow. Bye, everyone.